problem?
Joan of Arc.
They have no right to take these machines away. They may be able to dictate what we learn, but they cannot dictate what we eat and drink. I know what they're up to. Sure, they start with chips and soda, but how long before they go after our freedom of speech and our other unalienable rights?
Inalienable.
And so it begins.
Camille, you don't even eat this junk.
I'm not doing this for me.
Where did you get those handcuffs?
Psycho Suzanne's. Her mom has 3 pairs.
Listen, this has been a tough day for our family, so if you could cut us some slack, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah. 1 year ago today, my mom let my dad die.
So what's it gonna be? We're on an hourly.
Mrs. Hawthorne.
Take her away.
Mom.
And if I were principal, I would suspend her indefinitely.
Mom!
We're adding new titles every day to our awesome collection of blockbuster movies, from Hollywood to Nollywood. Download the app and subscribe. This isn't just a streaming channel. This is a bold new world of entertainment. Arise Play. Beyond streaming.
Arise Plays Movie Box is partnering with IndieView Festival Lagos, the home of the most exceptional short films curated from across Africa and the diaspora. Every month, 3 winning movies of the IndieView Festival competition will feature on the Arise Play streaming platform and benefit from the full movie box package and more. Do you think your short film can compete and win at the IndieView Festival? Then follow @IndieView Lagos on Instagram for more information on how to submit your entry. Jumpstart your movie career today and get on the path to fame with the exclusive IndieView and MovieBox partnership. Arise Play. Beyond streaming.
A very warm welcome to this week 60 minutes review of the big stories, topical issues, and all the controversies around the world. I'm Sumner Sambu. And now to the headlines. More crisis ahead for the All Progressives Congress as lack of internal democracy threatens its planned national convention, just as the Independent National Electoral Commission wants the party to adhere to the provisions of its constitution, INEC guidelines, the Electoral Act, and the 1999 Constitution. Now, same court, same issue, 2 different judgments. Reactions trailed judgment of 2 high courts on conflicting rulings on Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi and his deputy, who is battling to retain his seat after defecting to the All Progressives Congress. And President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa has been approached to play a mediation role in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. It has been back and forth in the All Progressives Congress in the last 8 months as the party struggles to conduct a national convention. The recent change in leadership is another bitter pill for party members to swallow. The sudden replacement of Maimala Buni as the chairman of the APC Caretaker Committee is throwing up new challenges in the party. The APC's planned convention scheduled for March 26 is still dicey, as INEC says it does not recognize the new leadership of the APC. The electoral body has also warned the governing party that lack of internal democracy may cost it a lot ahead of 2023. The Independent National Electoral Commission is warning the APC to adhere strictly to the provisions of its own constitution, INEC guidelines, the Electoral Act, and the 1999 Constitution. There are now talks that top APC leaders have flown to London to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari over the need to urgently resolve the internal crisis facing the governing party. Well, joining me to look at this very important issue in the politics of Nigeria and the All Progressives Congress is Biodun Ajiboye, who is a former Director of Media and Publicity, Southwest of the APC Presidential Campaign Council in 2019. Also joining us on the show is Arise News analyst Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Yeah, so I have two Abiodun here on the show.
Coincidentally so.
Yeah, so good to have you, gentlemen. Let me start with the first Abiodun Otumba, Abiodun Ajiboye. I mean, your party is facing a serious crisis at the moment. What do you make of these plans now by party leaders to rush to London to meet with President Buhari to try to sort out these issues based on the letter by INEC?
Let us be very procedural in our discussion so that we can understand and appreciate exactly what we want to achieve. I will start from the letter of INEC. That letter of INEC is saying that simply that the person that had written the last letter is not known to them. That is very correct. There's nothing strange. Yeah, there's nothing strange about that.
Governor of Niger State.
Yes, there's nothing strange about that. That is just the correct position of things. But the truth remains that May Malabuni, that they seem to recognize, had written a letter February 5th to say the same thing, that we're likely going to have a convention March 26th. So that letter is bona fide, that letter is authentic, that letter is there. So that somebody then wrote and they said, look, this person that has written, we didn't know how he came about the position he's claiming, which is okay. So what we then do is, when we have our NEC next week, which is the properly constituted organ to take decision and change leadership, we change our leadership and inform INEC of our resolutions.
Well, the major things there, Prof, is that someone also has the powers to summon the NEC, and INEC is saying that this person who summoned the National Executive Committee meeting is unknown to it, including Professor Tahir Mama, who Abubakar Sani Bello says is his interim national secretary. According to INEC, these two gentlemen are unknown to it. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think it borders largely on procedures, and INEC want to border also about legalese, about rules, regulations, because if they do not forget that contestation does not just end among political parties. There's also a third party, that intervenes every once in a while, or even more than regularly now, if I want to put it that way. And that's the judiciary, So booby traps might be ahead of some of the political parties if they take decisions without following procedures. So INEC is intervening, from the positive point of view. So INEC intervention is rather positive, can rather be helpful to the party in this circumstance. But largely, before INEC's intervention, the parties were actually trying to get around their crisis, doing some true political brismanship, horse trading and all of that, and before INEC now came in. What to do in this circumstance is not so much of legalese, but a little more of politicking. But that politicking would have been helped if we had, well, I'm not going to blame him for that, maybe it's a matter of style. If we have, maybe a leader, who has, who is slightly authoritative, and who is more.
Talking about President Muhammadu Buhari.
Yeah, and who intervenes a little more than he likes to do, because it's also very important to acknowledge the fact that the political parties is a conflation of different interests, and the interests are die-hearted, they are vociferous, especially on the eve of an election. Yeah. So in that circumstance,
now we have this leaders going to visit the same Buhari in London. Yeah, they do not. What do you expect him to do?
They do not have any option in the circumstance. He's the president. He's the leader of the party. No matter what anybody thinks. We may have some other political leadership, but President Buhari, has some influence. The power of suasion over all interest groups. So he's still the same person that they have to resort to. Whether they are meeting in London or anywhere doesn't matter, as long as they meet and they're able to come to some reasonable conclusions so that they can navigate their ways around the traps that INEC has identified for them. You know, so I think it's for their good at the end of, for their own good at the end of the day.
At the end of the
you
day,
know, so that the opposition or whatever interest that might be concerned about decisions that will not have been probably taken, you know, will not work against them through the instrumentality of the judiciary.
Very interesting. Ajiboye, why is it difficult for APC to follow its own rules? I mean, why did APC not do the needful? It looks like they try to circumvent their own rules by setting aside the Malabuni-led caretaker committee. In this instance, running to President Buhari, will it solve the problem that INEC has identified?
Our problem in APC is very fundamental and complicated, and it borders on leadership. You can't expect a man to run a country and run a party at the same time. It wasn't the case in the past. In the past, a chairman of a party faces the party, runs the party, while the president runs the country. They have a meeting point, which is conciliatory, discussing, talking, and mending fences, which is okay. The situation had changed today. You expect President Buhari to manage the political party, manage Nigeria. As complicated as things have turned around to be, it is difficult.
Well, hasn't he been trying to stay aside, but the politicians are calling him?
No. He should have employed the right strategy from the beginning. He should have delegated somebody to manage the political party, report to him, and they decide together. Rather than positioning himself as the person that will manage the party, the person that will manage Nigeria, the person that will, it can't work.
Are you saying that Malabuni has not been reporting properly
to
President Buhari?
Malabuni's appointment or inclusion in the first instance is subject to a lot of confusion. And why do I say so? Now, a group of people walked to the president, convinced him, probably confused him, and he was boxed into taking a decision. Malabuni's coming on board from the beginning is a little, Malabuni coming on board in the first instance, how constitutionally applauded was that move? Look, we drove away Oshiomhole, right? What we should have done, if Oshiomhole was a problem, was to take Oshiomhole out as a person and allow the CWC to remain. After all, what did they have against the CWC?
The National Working Committee.
Yeah, the entire National Working Committee. What do they have against them? As a matter of fact, what we had against Oshiomhole, what they had against Oshiomhole was his high-handedness, so to speak. And what Oshiomhole was trying to do was to get the party out of a group of people and give the party back to the people. We saw that in the case of Amosun in Ogun State. We saw that in the case of a couple of governors. And of course, the governors ganged up against Oshiomhole and they found a way to remove him. They brought May Malabuni. And people have been saying that May Malabuni is a contraption that is a little bit confusing, legally or otherwise. And
because there's no arrangement for caretaker committee.
Yeah, the Supreme Court case of Ondo State pointed it clearly to us as a party to say you are making grave mistakes by this guy being on this seat. Okay, we need to manage that circumstance. Now, a group of people have run to the president again. I hope they are not going to confuse him again, because I can't understand why we cannot live by the rules, just like you said.
And that's what President Buhari is trying to promote.
It should be very simple for us to live by the rule. But don't forget, politics is a combination of the good, the bad, the ugly, the treacherous, the untrusted. Every bad thing every bad character in the world coalesce to make politicians.
Okay, very interesting.
And as a result,
how do we go about this situation? And the APC seems to be in limbo at the moment. It seems to have two acting national chairmen at the moment, and INEC is warning. It's already ringing the bell. There's a likelihood that APC may present candidates that may not be acceptable to INEC if care is not taken.
Look, I think in my own, I think there are very distinguished personalities involved. You know, names have been mentioned. You know, Governor of Niger State. You know, Professor Tahir Maman, distinguished personalities, erudite lawyer. You know, we expect that they will drop in the right wisdom, the right advice at the appropriate time. You know, within appropriate circles. You know, and find a way around these things. I'm not sure that they will allow this to linger. You know, for days, not even, it will not, maybe in the next 48 hours, you might see there might be some silver lining. I just want to have confidence in the ability of our politicians, to politic around crises like this, and especially when it concerns a behemoth like the APC. We have only two major parties. APC is a very strong pillar, just like PDP, and if they don't get things right, it might affect our preparations for the next election and democracy at large. So I want to have confidence. Sometimes if you look at individual politicians, individual players, you may not be able to talk down their personalities, their pedigrees. It's only when conflicts of interests begin to play that problems result. So I want to be hopeful that in the next couple of hours or days, their pedigrees, their reputation will influence their decisions such that by the time they are coming together, they will find a right solution to move the party forward in the interest of a robust election and, of course, in the larger interest of our democracy.
Very interesting. And I come to you, Ajiboye. Do you think that the NEC meeting that's scheduled for next week will hold? We've seen APC trying to dare INEC and saying that it will still go ahead, but the legal issues are being pointed out to it. INEC is saying that the notices were not given on time, and that APC's insistence on the earlier notice that was sent for the February 26th convention has challenges, because if it was going to hold it in March 26th, it should have informed INEC, but it didn't. Now, if this NEC is threatened, will these issues be resolved ahead of the March 26th convention, and are you hopeful that that convention will hold?
I am very convinced that convention will hold. The issue of INEC is only observatory. They are observing that this letter is not the person signing this letter is not the person known to us.
Yeah, but they also they also regulate political parties.
No, what we are saying here is that the letter purportedly written initially by the rightful signatory, that is saying the saying 26th of February, that same letter can be amended. Buni is not dead. Buni is alive. If Buni has to sign, he has to sign. They take it back to him for him to sign. However, we shouldn't even get to that. The party should
have sign when the APC said they've removed him.
They didn't say they've removed him. He transmitted his delegated authority to somebody else.
Well, INEC says it is not in receipt of that letter.
No. Does INEC have to know when I am changing my internal administrative system or internal administrative? So what we have done is that in the first instance, Buni delegated authority cannot be delegated. That's what the administrative maxim that says delegatus non potest delegare. Buni doesn't have any business delegating power to Abubakar. No, he doesn't even. They don't even have to inform INEC that Buni is transmitting authority to him. What should have happened basically here was that if Buni was going on leave, Buni has a right to go on leave, right? And naturally, there must be succession. Naturally, so they can institute and call NEC meeting. There's nothing wrong.
Okay, so as vice chairman who has taken over, Abubakar Sani Bello has the powers.
Yes,
that's what you're saying.
What has gone wrong?
Call for the NEC meeting.
What I see, you see, we are not seeing the deep issues that are involved in that matter.
And what are the issues?
What they have come out, what they are telling us right now are the ways they feel the situation can be managed and should be managed. The issue is very simple. El-Rufai has come out to let us see exactly what has happened. The president gave a directive. However, whatever you have to do, make sure that this convention holds by 26th of March. There must have been a problem why the president suddenly woke up and insisted. Now, it was looking like the administration of Buni was bent on on shifting the goalpost forever.
Especially with the court order,
yeah,
which is still subsisting.
We understand there is a court order that was hidden somewhere. El-Rufai came out to tell us that. So if there is a court order hidden somewhere, why is this borders on character? I'm sorry to say, because I can't understand why you as caretaker chairman, a governor of a state, managing a political party in an interim basis, on an interim basis, will not come straight with whatever dealings you have on the table.
Okay, very interesting indeed. And Prof, let's talk about how quick APC needs to, do away with this court order, which was obtained on November 18, 2021, and is still subsisting. How quick do you think that the APC needs to do this? And then let's also talk about the issue of Professor Tahir Mamman coming in, because he has talked about that of the APC national chairman transmitting powers to his deputy, the vice chairman Abubakar Sani Bello, who is acting now. But APC has not explained to us how managed Professor Tahir Mamman became the interim national secretary when Akpan Udo there says he's still the national secretary of the party.
Well, I think ordinarily we shouldn't even have had this interim administration if all was well with the party. The Buni-led administration shouldn't have come up at all. And the fact that it came up, we expected that APC should have put its ass together and resolve it and have a substantive leadership 6 months after. And they kept moving it, after every 6 months they will shift it again. Very unfortunate situation. And it comes back to what we're saying, that there's the overarching authority that was supposed to reign in, is not a handsome person. It's somebody that probably allow processes to flow, until maybe things get all right, and it will now come in. Well, that is what it is, and we just hope that in the next few days, like you said, directly responding to your question, how soon? Maybe yesterday, but since it hasn't happened yesterday, maybe tomorrow. And to your second question, Professor Mamman is somebody I know very well. He's my boss. He's an outstanding gentleman, somebody that will not do things, that will disrupt any process. He holds his reputation very highly. Do not forget, senior advocate of Nigeria, professor of law. And so that's why he's even in the caretaker committee. Absolutely. To guide the party. He knows his onions. I believe that he was appointed, by the committee of governors who were concerned about, repairing the damage that has been done in the last couple of months with respect to preparations for APC convention. And of course, Governor Rufai told us these some days ago on television. He was typically Governor Rufai. He was very forthright about everything that transpired. So it's just very okay for us to assume that the governors actually chose Professor Mamman. He couldn't have chosen himself. Somebody I trust very well. Very interesting
indeed. We saw that letter being sent to INEC. Now let's come to some of the steps that have been taken by Governor Abubakar Sani Bello. You've seen the state chairman being sworn in, you've seen the zoning formula being brought into place, and then you've seen the subcommittees for the National Convention being inaugurated. Some party members have told Arise News that they are so excited that most of these things were things that the Buni-led administration, delayed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, for a longer period of time. But I would want to hear your own assessment of the steps taken by Governor Abubakar Sani Bello since Monday that he assumed that position.
Sumner, my brother, when a man does not have ulterior motives and is put in a position of power, he exhibits and discharges his power without any form of ill feelings. Even if he makes mistakes, they are not intentional errors. They are not, What we have seen in the past was that somebody was trying to manipulate the party. Now, the Niger State governor is a product of circumstance. Somebody didn't do well. Somebody who had overall responsibility now says, okay, fine, you take over and try to do the right thing. So he has no business not doing the right thing. The right thing is there for everybody to do. It's only when you begin to have ulterior motive that you try to manipulate the right thing. It's not we're all human beings, and this borders on character. Your character will come to play in whatever position you find yourself. Look, for me as a person, evaluating everybody in the party as it is today. The Niger State governor does not have any business not to conduct the party affairs as honestly, as forthright, as unbiased as possible. And that is what he has started to do.
So you're contented with all the steps?
No, he has started. He doesn't have a choice but to do the right thing and let it. Look, this party you are seeing, a lot of us, brought it to life with our blood.
Yeah, and that's why we've seen people like Bola Tinubu have been quiet, although he later sent in a statement during the week where he was saying that
Bola Tinubu is a presidential
President Buhari for some of the steps being taken and all of that. You think that President Buhari should also be blamed generally for all of this, that as national leader of the party, he hasn't given the right direction? What needs to be done? Because some party members are also saying that especially some of the pro-Buni people, are saying that it looks like the president is giving authority that he doesn't have, that one person should not be dictating to the party how the party should move. It should be the party organs that should be saying what should be done. Do you think that President Buhari has been given directives that are not supposed to be given? Because we hear that he gave this order for Abubakar Sani Bello to assume powers. Although the presidency hasn't denied that.
President does not have, he didn't have any other option than to disband that leadership that was going to run.
Was he actually disbanded?
No, well, however, it wasn't.
Members are being skeptical.
It wasn't disbanded. It wasn't disbanded, but he has taken away the leadership that seems not to be moving at the appropriate speed. Okay.
Very quickly, as we are trying to.
Yes, and if the party didn't move, if that leadership didn't move at a speed that is expected, the party generally will be run into a lot of confusion. And to avoid that confusion is why President Buhari had said, "Okay, come, take over and ensure that this task are achieved within this period of time."
Well,
this is the right way to.
Some party members said that's authority that President Buhari issued, go and take over. If he indeed issued that, actually that power belongs to the National Executive Committee, and it's not a one individual power. Do you think that APC needs to ensure that its organs function more so that we don't have a situation whereby the president is being forced to take decisions that are supposed to be collective decisions?
Yeah, that's actually the ideal. If the organs are functioning, individuals, the role of individuals will be minimized. in the processes of in the processes and procedures of the party, but that's not. We're dealing with unusual situations, unusual circumstances where things are not happening the way they should happen. But in that circumstance, still, you now need this individual, strong individual, the influential or the most influential individual to rein in more, so that there can be order. And of course, there are different ways in which it can rein in. It can be covert or overt, but it doesn't even seem that it's happening very well from the two angles. So it now appears as if individuals are claiming, acting on the purported authority of the one who should rein in more, and trying to rein in.
If I said President Buhari actually gave the order, and we haven't seen the presidency disputing that. So, gentlemen, as we try to round off this conversation, we have two National Caretaker Committee chairmen now, Buni and Abubakar Sani Bello.
No,
what's the way forward?
I'm not sure we have two. I'm not sure. No, the way forward is
well, we don't. That's why INEC said they don't recognize Abubakar Sani Bello.
Our party has a right to choose whoever we want as chairman through the right organs. So the NEC is going to be organized. We're going to ratify every decision that seemed to have been taken by purportedly wrong organs. So
are you hoping to step down Buni at that meeting and John Akpan Odo there?
Hasn't Buni been stepped down already?
Very interesting.
So are we stepping him down again?
To the APC, your last advice.
Yeah, it's going to
be focusing on his constitution, the same constitution it set for itself, or we can
look, Sumner, I think it's going to be resolved. It's the character of politicians, character of political process for us to have this kind of turbulence, on the eve of a general election. And some of the things playing out now is that the contest of political power, coming out indirectly. That's what is making individuals more vociferous, and indulging more in subterfuge, trying to undercut themselves. And that's what is playing out. But I see it being resolved, because they will not want to lose the election. So we don't want to lose the election.
Especially considering what happened in Zamfara State.
Yes,
I mean, that's
right. It will be resolved.
That sign is still there.
And again, I think
thank you you. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. Biodun Ajiboye, who was the Southwest spokesperson in the 2019 APC Presidential Campaign Council, has been speaking with us on the latest issues in the APC. And we must thank you too, Professor Biodun Adeni, who is a Rise News analyst, for giving us hands-on experience on the need why the APC needs to follow its own constitution, INEC guidelines, the Electoral Act, and the 1999 Constitution. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us.
Some dreams are big. Some dreams are small. Some dream to go from place to place. Dreams of love and ever after. Dreams and sacrifices that builds the future. Whatever the dream or step or journey, you can do more with a partner that cares about your dreams. Access, more than banking.
Here's a card we no go give you stress at all. Zero waiting, zero queue. First Banky Petra card. Here's a card we no go give you wahala. Zero trouble now for you. First Banky Petra card. Tell off it's if tell off it's spoiler. Who won't break 'em? Where you want say now only you get 'em. Nothing fit do one. Sharp, sharp payment not the way. Swipe they go, you know the way. Veteran card with the sweet body. Veteran card we know the shape person. We put you first again. First Banky Veteran card we put you first again. Generate your virtual card we put you first again. First Banky Veteran card we put you first again. Just generate your virtual card.
Welcome back. You're still watching This Week, and I'm Sumner Sambo. Now, same court, same issue, two different judgments. That is the story in Ebonyi State after the governor was dragged to court for defecting from the People's Democratic Party, under which platform he was elected. Now, the Ebonyi State High Court had dismissed the suit filed by the plaintiffs, Senator Sonny Ogboji, Justin Ogodo, and the APC, who challenged the defection of the governor and his, the PDP, which challenged the defection of the governor and his deputy. The court also awarded 500,000 naira as damages against Umahi and his deputy. But the Federal High Court in Abuja, in its own ruling, sacked the governor and his deputy for leaving the party under which platform they were elected. The court equally ordered 16 members of the Ebonyi State House of Assembly that joined the governor and his deputy in the defection to the APC on November 17, 2020, to vacate their seats and refund all salaries and monies received from the day they defected to the APC. This, of course, drew the anger of the governor and his team, but the governor has gone ahead to file an appeal at the Court of Appeal while he continues in his position alongside his deputy. INEC, which was mandated to give a certificate of return to any new names forwarded by the PDP, says it is still studying the judgment.
It's already displayed.
I feel so sorry for the judiciary. The executives may have problems, the legislature may have problems, but the moment justice could be purchased, then we are in trouble in this country. And the ruling this afternoon is a clear evidence that this country is in trouble. And let me tell you that this same judge has over 10 cases against Ebonyi State government with him. And you can imagine what is going to rule. We have petitioned him to NJC, and we will follow it up at all costs to ensure that this man is brought to justice.
Well, Ebonyi State Governor David Umahi there, and there have been these arguments whether he's still the governor in charge of the state and his deputy, because the PDP have gone ahead to actually nominate a new governor and his deputy based on what that court judge had said. Well, joining me to discuss this development is Arise News analyst Professor Abiodun Adeni, who's still here with us. Now, Prof, it's been a very difficult situation. I mean, we have these two judgments, the same court of coordinate jurisdiction, giving out this judgment. Now, Justice Eko, who had, in his judgment, sacked Governor Umahi, has said that INEC should immediately ensure that if names are forwarded to it by the People's Democratic Party, that new certificates of return are given. And PDP has forwarded those names, but we haven't seen anything being done at the moment. INEC says it is studying the judgments. Now, the other aspect of it is that Governor Umahi also has this judgment from the Ebonyi State High Court, which says that there's no reason for that, for the case to have come to court in the first instance, because Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution protects the governor and his deputy once they are sworn in, and that no pre-election case or post-election case can come in. At this point in time, what do you make of this?
There's so many issues to these, you know, from the point of view of political observers like you and I, you know. One is about the continuous tribunalization of political process, you know. One will have thought that 2 to 3 years after the elections that will have been done with, you know, election matters, court matters and all of that, you know, that political office holders will be concentrating on the business of statecraft, you know. But of course, down the line, that has turned out not to be the case in the case of Ebonyi. And now we are having courts of coordinate jurisdiction issuing contradicting orders, which is very, very unfortunate. And it highlights the point again on the need for us to have maybe some level of sanity in the judiciary, you know, whereby they can minimize their intervention. I don't know how this is going to be done, but I think, I mean, nothing is impossible. There can be some intervention, you know, where, I mean, some kind of regulation saying that after this kind of time, you know, maybe, or saying that, or maybe some kind of law, some kind of ethics that will prevent the justices, you know, from accepting or tolerating some cases in their courts, you know, especially when you know that some of these things might have some motive. I'm not passing judgment. I'm not, you know, casting aspersions on the actions.
A federal high court is already handling the issue, or a state high court is already handling the issue. Shouldn't there be a system that detects that is the same case, so that one of the courts will stop
that's what
hearing
we're talking about. There should be
discretion
there should be some discretion somewhere where, you know, those who are administering the justice process would now say, no, this is not the time to tolerate or to accept this case. But again, we also know that politicians have their pressure tactics. They will come with their pressure tactics, but the onus is on the judiciary, because it's a sanctuary. You know, it's the last hope of a so-called last hope of the common man, and we expect them as the arbiter, the third leg of the trinity in a democratic dispensation. And of course, they should always be above board. We've had lawyers argued on both sides.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
with
it's
respect
been a
to this
divisive issue,
absolutely,
actually.
with respect to this Ebonyi case, and the preponderance of argument is that the judgment is ultra-vires. The judgment is an anomalous, that it shouldn't have come in at all, because they are you know, outlined ways in which a governor can be removed, and this one does not fall into that bracket. But we also know that once upon a time begins a story. It might also be a landmark judgment. We don't know how it's going to pan out. But the gratifying thing now is that the governor has gone to an appellate court, a higher court, where we hope that there will be a better interpretation, and probably getting to the Supreme Court, even a much more informed interpretation will will be giving us, and it will help at the end of the day our jurisprudence become a precedent that we can cite that can be useful in the future. But more importantly is for us to just limit the extent to which we tribunalize, political processes, so that the voice of the people can reign, in the political, in the democratic experiments that we're going through.
Very interesting developments indeed. And now a lot of persons are beginning to question also the morality of Nigerian politicians, that you are elected under one political platform and then you move. Although from some of the lawyers that Arise News has been speaking with, they have been saying that whatever the law doesn't talk about, that you don't infer anything to it. That if the law wanted to talk about governors who defect or presidents who defect from one party to the other with their vice president or deputy governors, that it would have said it outright that governors and their deputies, presidents and their vice president cannot defect. But that it only discussed about that of lawmakers, whether at the state houses of assembly or at the federal parliament, that the constitution is silent on those issues. But let's talk about politics and if there's any morality in politics indeed. When politicians actually gain votes on one political platform, should they leave that platform when there is no problem on the platform?
There are two legs to your question. The first leg is about the law not covering some aspect or the constitution, but it's acceptable to say that it is practically impossible for the law to cover everything. And that's why systems and society move in a process. Then as you are experiencing some new things, new realities are evolving, then you begin to think about ethics, regulations, that will manage, evolving circumstances, based on your lived experience. That's how life is, and that's how it's always been. There are some laws we have in this country, some regulations we have now that we don't have 5, 6, 7 years ago. So the new ones we are having are coming because of new realities, That's the bottom line, really. Remember the case of Kogi? It was a strange thing. The law couldn't have envisaged what happened, So because of that, there are new developments reflected in the electoral law. Absolutely, that have brought about some improvements. So that's the nature of life. So we cannot blame ourselves, We are going to. There are still some things, some circumstances that we imagine in the future now that we are not envisaging. But of course, once they come, of course, again, we'll get back to work. Think around ways of dealing with them at the level of regulation, laws, etc., etc. But to your second question on morality, it's neither here nor there. It's about principles. But the level at which we are now, where political office holding is a sure bet, to wealth, to material acquisition, where the attraction is still very high. You do not expect that the quest for it wouldn't be very diehard. It wouldn't be profound like we are witnessing now. And when we have a profoundness in that regard, you could expect that it will rub off on people's moral standing. Morality becomes a question that people will not want to ask around themselves. And that's why people also have that assumption that once you are a politician, you are likely to have question mark around some actions that you will take along the line, except you just an extremely principled person.
Issue.
Well, so and again, finally, Somna, the third argument is that maybe it's probably a reflection of the level at which we are in a democratic experiment, that in the fullness of time, as we grow, as we mature, principle will begin to take a stronger pedestal.
Yeah, because it's the similar situation in Zamfara State, where the APC was punished by the court for not following processes of its own constitution and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electoral Act. And the victory was given to PDP and its candidate, Governor Bello Matawalle, only for the same Governor Bello Matawalle to now move to the same APC that, the court said shouldn't be given any opportunity to govern because it didn't adhere to its own constitution, the Electoral Act, and the 1999
And that's why we're saying that.
And that's why the issue of morality just keeps coming up. How do we cure this mischief through laws and all
it's
that?
a long look. To change our democracy takes a lot of things. It's not just about laws, about regulation. It's also about attitudinal change and some kind of profound sensitization. But that one too cannot come in a vacuum. It has to come through, the strengthening of our institutions that will satisfy the yearnings and aspirations of the people. So when the yearnings and aspirations of the people are satisfied through the prism of institutions, people have less need, to to have their hands in the cookie jar. And because of the desperation to have their hand wrongly into the cookie jar, they don't care about anything. We're not pointing accusing fingers, but we're just saying that this is something that is prevalent, but largely, covertly. And that's why you see EFCC and ICC, they're always busy, and of course their work seems endless, irrespective of the warnings, the prosecution of people. We still have crime. People are still being caught every day. It's going to continue for some time. And that's why I'm saying that we're probably evolving. Maybe in the fullness of time, we'll have less of these things. Principle and morality will probably...
We must thank you so much, Professor Abiodun Adeni, who's a Rise News analyst. And of course, the debate continues, whether it's the individual and the political parties that own the votes, or it's just the political party that owns the vote, or the individual that owns the vote separately whenever elections are conducted and results announced. Well, it's time for us to take another break, and when we return, this time around, we'll be going to South Africa, where it has been asked to mediate between Russia and Ukraine. Stay with Arise News.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Knowing who you are starts with knowing where you come from. We are the now and the future. We know that we live in a world that offers us endless possibilities. We'll continue to win to create when, where, and how we want. And if they ask you how we did it, tell them we only know one way to do it. We don't wait for permission. We do it now. My name is Ayo Balogun, Wizkid, and I am made in Africa.
Welcome back to the show. You're still watching This Week. I'm Somna Sambu, and we now move on to South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa says his country has been approached to play a mediation role in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Ramaphosa did not say who had made the approach, but says he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin and urged him to seek a mediated solution to the conflict. Now, South Africa is one of the few African countries that abstained from voting against Russia at the United Nations emergency meeting on the invasion of Ukraine. It is not clear yet if this mediation role is sanctioned by both warring parties or if South Africa is nominated by the United Nations to undertake the role. And joining me to look at this issue is Arise News South Africa correspondent, Solisi Masango. So good to have you, Solisi. Let's take a look at South Africa in the first instance. Isn't it a little bit sounding here as if South Africa has been tending towards Russia in its statements of recent? Because, I mean, initially when the invasion started, there was a statement by South Africa that Russia should withdraw its troops from Ukraine. And then subsequently, we saw other statements from South Africa removing that aspect of the call for Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine. It was now like a midway course, and it wasn't so emphatic that Russia should do that. And then came the vote at the United Nations where we saw South Africa abstaining. What do you make of all of this? Do these scenarios actually qualify South Africa to be a mediator?
Look, I really think it's just a matter of South Africa at this moment trying to play, a big brother, whether it's a toothless big brother or just a big brother that's trying to, pull rank in this entire conflict remains to be seen at this time. And this is also at a moment where there has been some conflicting reports about South Africa's stance towards the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict that we've been seeing for the past 17, 18 days, when you have the presidency of the country in one hand saying one thing and the Department of International Relations saying another. Now, the South African response to the Ukraine-Russia conflict has, not been what the Western world anticipated. In fact, the US and the EU are pushing South Africa to pick a side in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And South Africa was among, 16 of Africa's 54 nations that, like China and India, abstained from voting on a United Nations resolution condemning the insurgent. Now, South Africans took to social media expressing their position on the move by the US to pressure South Africa into picking a side. However, we've seen how the South African presidency has said that, they might be looking into, playing that mediation role. But the extent of which they'll be playing this mediation role remains to be seen, because soon, bear in mind that South Africa and Russia enjoy some fruitful relations over the past years that we've seen. Even last year, we've seen how the export-import market has been bolstered between South Africa and Russia, seeing those 400 and something million of import and exports between the two countries. So you would assume that as much as South Africa would try to be, putting Russia in line, they'd also want to do it in a way in which they're really mindful of their position that they're playing and would not really want to sour their relations with Russia at this particular point in time. But word from the presidency and what we've been told is that he had spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin to gain an understanding of the situation that was unfolding between Russia and Ukraine, and he conveyed his belief that the conflict should be resolved through mediation and negotiation.
Very interesting indeed, Solisi. I'm so glad you put that in perspective, considering ANC, that's the ruling party in South Africa's links with Russia, that's the old Soviet Union, and how Russia, the Soviet Union helped to train members of the ANC and all of that. But let's talk about how Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has tried to mediate between Ukraine and Russia, and it's been difficult for him to achieve that. What makes you optimistic that Ramaphosa's intervention may be acceptable by both parties?
Look, it would seem that, President Putin had indicated that he appreciated South Africa's balanced approach. This is because even Ramaphosa, the presidency itself, said they believe that this position enables both parties to subject the conflict to mediation and negotiation, and this would be based on their relations within the, Russian Federation as a member of BRICS, because we can also bear in mind that South Africa is part of the BRICS unit, and we cannot really ignore that at this particular point in time, because this is also at a time where it was revealed that the Ukraine and Russia war has shown a darker side of unity. I know this also takes me to the conversation I think I had during the week with our colleague Bosun in a Rise Exchange, where, we were speaking about the relations between South Africa and Russia, and how some of the, South African MKMVA members were trained in Russia. Some of them even sought some sort of shelter in Russia during apartheid days. So one would not want to really mess up all of those relations that date years back because of this. And I think this has been the elephant in the room, if you may put it that way, because the presidency itself has not really been in a position to confirm whether or not they would be further engaging and adapting a further firmer stance to say Russia stop what it is that you're doing, because the entire globe feels that you have been the one that has been at the forefront of this. And it was not really clear whether South Africa would be playing that big brother role. But one really got the sense that South Africa would really want to be in a position where, even if it's just in a sense of giving a slap on the wrist to Russia to say, look at what you're doing, take into cognizance, what is really happening right now, instead of really taking a firmer stance. Because also that voting in the EU, we've seen South Africa decided to abstain. So you'd really say that South Africa is choosing to stay on the fence with this, because even the press conference that was given by the presidency on this particular report on South Africa playing a mediation role, it was not really clear, to be honest. It was a press briefing which had much to do about pretty much nothing, where the presidency really said that they're looking into dialogues, they're looking into talking to Russia, they're looking into bringing both parties into the discussion table. We know that Russia is not in a position to be negotiating with Ukraine. So what is South Africa going to be doing about that is what is important. So it does not really look like South Africa will be willing to do,
Very interesting indeed. As we try to round off this conversation, just two very quick questions. Now, the first one is the South African government telling us who has approached it for this negotiation, for this mediation role? And then secondly, what are the Ukrainians saying actually? Have we seen President Volodymyr Zelensky talking about South Africa, considering that South Africa also has a good relations with Ukraine? I mean, we've seen that in the past.
What's really interesting about this is seeing South Africa possibly adapting that, so-called middle player sort of role in this whole Russia-Ukraine conflict. But what we've been told by the South African presidency is that they had been approached to play a mediation role. And, they said that this was after a conversation that was had between President Cyril Ramaphosa as well as the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. So Ramaphosa did say that on Twitter, that he had, of course, spoken to the Russian president and he wanted to just gain a broader understanding of the situation unfolding currently right now between Russia and Ukraine. And he did say that, he conveyed a belief that everything can be sorted out through dialogue. So I think the next couple of hours or the next couple of days would be telling to see what role South Africa really will be playing in this entire conflict, whether it would be giving a firmer stance or really just playing to the media gallery.
I'm just being told I have less than 60 seconds. I just wanted you to talk about the South Africa-Ukraine relations. I mean, what are the Ukrainians saying about all of this? Do they trust South Africa enough to want South Africa to be a mediator? Very quickly.
Browsing through Twitter, we've seen stories of how Russians have been, Ukrainians have been seeking, shelter in some areas. The sense is that they're not really confident in South Africa's role. They're bringing the whole thing of the Russia-South African relations that date years ago. So like I said earlier on, it would remain to be seen how the next couple of days really play out after the reports of South Africa being hinted as the next mediator in this Russia-Ukraine conflict will play out. But I can tell you, Ukrainians are not really confident, grantedly so, in the role of South Africa, that South Africa could possibly play in this entire conflict as it plays out in the global stage.
Very interesting submission there by you. Msolisi Masango, who's a Rise News correspondent, speaking with us from South Africa. Well, we must thank you for joining us on the show. And that's how it's been on the show today. We thank you for joining us on the program. On behalf of our crew from Lagos, London, and here in Abuja, thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm Somna Sambu.
Plus is here. Existing Glow customers will get 400% bonus on every recharge and 100 MB data bonus on first recharge of the month. New Glow customers will get 1,000 Naira welcome bonus. To activate, buy a new Glow SIM today or dial *777# for existing Glow customers.
4 million hectares of arable land. Over 200 million people. One nation. Home to Africa's fertilizer company. Dangote Fertilizer. Pure urea fertilizer. With one single-minded passion to feed Nigeria. Every bag is a potential, an aspiration to turn this green nation into the biggest food basket of Africa. Dangote Fertilizer.